Khans of Mongolian beef.
Yeah, so fetches. This is obviously the masses have been crying for this, and they've been hinting at it. You know, a funny precursor to this was being at GenCon, and the dealers there, some of which are known name dealers, Star City, Troll and Toad, Cool Stuff, Gaming, etc. I would say all the biggest North American dealers are at GenCon, and none of them really wanted anything to do with Fetchlands. And this is a couple of weeks ago, so a fellow Tusk member, Paul Callis, he was shopping around. He's got, I don't know, an extra 60 or 70 revised duels, and he was looking at, he has double power, but he wanted to upgrade to have double beta power. And so he was just trying to dump some of this stuff that's just ridiculously high that he got for $5. And really no dealers wanted to get involved with fetches in any way, shape, or form. So there's always these rumors that WotC sends out feelers, warnings to their bigger retailers. I'm just curious if that happened, or if they were just hedging their bets, thinking, okay, this might happen. But there it did, and they look like ass. I'm happy to say.
Oh, I haven't even seen them. Do you have a link to the?
Yeah, I think right now they've got they're up on Gathering Magic on the spoiler page. If you want to peek at them.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
They also have really, really lame flavor text.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So most of the flavor text has to do with one dragon-themed thing or another. If we aren't being slammed over the head enough with how cool dragons are, they've cemented it with the Fetchlands. I'm pretty sure Gathering Magic has the pictures. But anyway, and of course they're all stamped with the new hollow.
The new frame.
Yep, and they're rare, so they'll get the hollow. So anyway, whatever. It is what it is. Obviously, but we all own Eternal cards. It's not a big deal, but it may help lower the barrier to entry significantly, I guess. You depending on what blue deck you were looking at, that was maybe $400 or $500. I don't know what were fetches hitting, $100, right? Polluted Delta.
Yeah, $75 to $100.
So yeah, you get these lame looking Fetchlands. I think it'll also help out the modern situation with Fetchlands. Now, this would imply to me that it's somewhere in this block we're going to get Zenda fetches. I think one of the other statements they made was that they're no longer going to have half sets of whatever dual land is in standard. So I think that lends itself to then probably seeing a Zenda fetch reprint at some point in this block, which will also help, because I think now you're going to see Scalding Tarn's going to be worth more than Polluted Delta, I would guess. Right now on TCG Player, you can get Polluted Deltas for $45. So as of this morning on the 31st.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
So what's a Scalding Tarn? $60. So yeah.
Fuck. That's quite a dip. I mean they were definitely a solid $100 card.
Yeah.
Mind you, if you want the original, I'm sure the original is still going to hold pretty decent value.
Yeah.
Because the new one looks ugly as sin.
They are hideous, but they do find island and swamp. So there's probably a whole nother discussion we could have on how this affects Modern too. Like I think it's going to change a little bit on how you can build decks in Modern. I think you can probably get away with playing more basics now in Modern. Not that there's anything that really punishes you for not playing basics in Modern, but besides the occasional Blood Moon. But it should be interesting to see how the mana bases there change when they've got the full 10 Fetchlands.
Maybe what they're going to do is give Modern all the Fetchlands, so that they can fetch basics, and then also give them Wasteland to punish them.
I think Modern really could use Wasteland. I think it would make the format better. Right now, it's dominated by these 4 to 5 mana, oops, I win the game combos that are super frustrating to play against. They're kind of an inevitability, and forcing them into fetching basics and trying to figure out their battle plan would at least constrain them a little bit. Right now, they can just fetch just total garbage lands. And the pod deck's the example of that. The Kiki pod deck runs a mana base that looks like day-old vomit, and it's just hard to punish that deck. So, anyway, it might have some interesting implications for Modern. They also spoiled the first of what I would assume will be a full cycle of charms, 3-mana charms, and we got the Bug Charm. Also on this podcast, just as a caveat, no one on this podcast will ever use any of the new terms for the tribes. I won't even say the word, but the bug tribe word we will not be saying.
It's bug. I don't even know it by any other name.
Yeah, so if you're expecting that, or if that offends you, then please never listen for the rest of your life. But they spoiled the Bug Charm, and it actually looks It looks playable. It's not Abrupt Decay, but maybe it's your 5th or 6th piece of removal in a slower bug deck, like a Bug Planeswalker deck or a Shardless bug deck. But it says it's obviously bug to cast, and it's destroy target monocolored creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and then just draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So you get looting, disenchant, and sort of this quasi-terror. So
That's okay. I mean,
it's a pretty good card, yeah. I mean, I can't think of a scenario where it's going to be dead that often, because at a minimum it loots. So any deck that's looking to be in the 4th or 5th, 6th turn, maybe be a little bit more of a control deck, this card is probably going to compete for the space that like Maelstrom Pulse used to occupy, or anything that's not Abrupt Decay, any more expensive removal spells. So.
Well, I remember in Bug Control I was running Dimir Charm for a while, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this could be kind of the replacement for, Dimir Charm or the Diabolic Edict, the crazy one-ofs that any sort of bug control deck is going to run.
Yeah, I agree. So it's a pretty cool spell. There's also supposedly going to be a cycle of rare Dega, bug, junk instants that aren't called charms. So the first one they spoiled is Dega to cast it, and it's called Crackling Doom. It's an instant, and it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Important, it doesn't target. And then each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among the creatures he or she controls.
Oh.
So it's an edict, and it domes them for 2 for Dega, and it doesn't target, which is pretty sweet. So, it kills Progenitus, Emrakul, maybe you can cack a Planeswalker with it. So it's sort of, anyway, another decent flexible removal spell that, costs 3, so, but...
Yeah, it's not going to be crazy, because 2 would be a little bit too good.
But then it wouldn't be Dega, so you wouldn't.
Yeah.
We also got a Planeswalker, and I'm not sold on him, but he hits a sweet spot in that he's 5, and he's Sarkahn the Dragon Speaker, and he's got 4 loyalty, he's 3 red, +1, until the end of turn, Sarkahn becomes a 4/4 legendary 4/4 red dragon creature with flying, indestructible, and haste. So he would slot into like a Dragon Stompy deck where you'd normally have like Stormbreath Dragon or Arkslogger or maybe Siege Gang Commander if you're retarded and you play Mod Catcher. Or what was the other big dragon, like Thundermaw Hellkite?
Yeah, Lightning Dragon, all those old.
So pretty interesting. I mean, the obvious problem with him in Legacy is he gets swords, but the assumption in Dragon Stompy is maybe you've played a Chalice on 1 or you've got a Transfigure out. His -3 is he Flame Slashes, which is 4 damage to a creature.
I think that ability is pretty bad.
That ability is pretty bad. It seems like -3 is a savage cost to pay to Flame Slash. That probably could have been -2, but whatever. I mean, you're paying 5 for this guy. He's a pretty expensive Planeswalker.
Yeah, I mean, when you're already not Jace the Mind Sculptor, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah. Or, I mean, like, I guess it would have been cool if he could rape other Planeswalkers. I don't know how they could have worded it, but...
Just say Sarkahn deals 4 damage to target creature or player. For -3, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with it. I guess maybe they don't want people getting domed for 4. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I don't. That ability to me is a little bit fringy. And then his ultimate is... his ultimate's kind of dodgy too. -6, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your draw step, draw 2 additional cards. And at the beginning of your end step, discard your hand.
So Grafted Skullcap, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so he's at the top end of like a Dragon Stompy Blood Moon deck curve anyway, and normally those decks are hellbent by the 5th or 6th turn. But at the same time, you're really looking at 5 attack, right? Untap, 5 or 6 attack. I find it hard to believe that if you have a 4/4 flying indestructible dragon, there's going to be a lot of incentive to vindicate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to get Grafted Skullcap next turn. So
you have to attack for 15 total, basically, before you're...
Exactly. Yeah, yep. So
definitely EDH playable. I mean, realistically, 15 damage in EDH is,
right,
whatever.
Right. But I would say at this point, Koth in a Dragon Stompy Shell is a Planeswalker that's better. And I think if you're going to spend 5 on something, if you're going to play Seething Song and drop large bomb-like things, I just think Stormbreath Dragon's better because it can't be swordsed. It has haste. And the upside, the late game of it, is insane if you can Stormseeker them and make it huge.
So how happy will you be when? Because I know you're going to play this card because you're going to get them, and I think you're going to play some. How happy will you be when you go turn 1 Ancient Tomb, Simian Spirit Guide, Seething Song, Sarkahn attack you for 4, pass?
I think, honestly, I would rather still have a Stormbreath Dragon. And I have done that several times. I have gotten turn 1 Stormbreath Dragon against Miracle players before, and it's a great feeling. I still think Stormbreath Dragon is just better. But
Pro-White is a big deal.
Yeah, Pro-White is just such a massive deal. Even in Modern, it's a massive deal. So, anyway, he's at least interesting. I think they pushed it a little bit. But to your point, I think if the -3 could hit a player and hence hit other Planeswalkers, he might have been over the top. He might have been a little bit better. And then I think as it is, he might not quite make it. And they've also sort of spoiled the mechanics now. There's the Prowress mechanic, which is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn, which is an interesting mechanic. It's not quite Kiln Fiend because you can actually play Moxes and trigger it. So it'll be interesting to see if they have a creature with Prowess that doesn't suck, and makes the cut in some kind of, there's a lot of cards that fill that gap, like Young Pyromancer, Quirion Dryad, Kiln Fiend. What's that Chimera?
Spellheart Chimera?
Yeah. So they've got a whole cycle of creatures that sort of do that as an inborn ability. This one, though, does trigger on artifacts, and so which sets it apart from all the other ones, which I think almost all those exclusively. Well, Quirion Dryad requires colors, and the others all require sorceries or instants. So they don't have anything spoiled right now that isn't a shit pile. The only one they've spoiled is Dragon Style Twins, which is 3 red for a rare. It's 3/3. It has double strike and prowess. It's a human monk. Anyway, it's like something out of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and it has. Anyway, it's not very good. If it had haste, maybe, I don't know. I guess my bar for creatures is pretty high. Delve is back as a mechanic, which is interesting. Morph is back as a mechanic, and we got another mechanic which on the surface seems pretty terrible. It's called Outlast. And it is literally...
Outlast?
Yeah, Outlast. It seems to be on all of the white creatures, whatever tribe they're going to be. It is just simply... tap this creature. So far, all of them tap. It's tap this creature and put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. That's all it is. It's like shitty spike.
That's really awful.
At sorcery speed, that's how bad it is. So...
You know what? I would actually be okay with that being at instant speed, because you could be like, oh, I'm going to block you, put a +1/+1 counter. See, that's an interesting ability.
Yeah.
But just like, I'm going to tap my guy, do nothing, can't block, can't attack, that's terrible.
Correct. It's terrible.
I can play spells that put +1/+1 counters on stuff without having to do that. That's...
Also correct, yes. There's a new Tombstalker. I don't think he's going to make the cut either, because he's a little more expensive than Tombstalker. But he's 7 black with Delve. And he's a flying 4/5, so he's smaller than Tombstalker. But he does have an ability. He has the ability X tap, exile X cards from your graveyard. Target creature gets -X until end of turn.
That's cool.
It's cool. It's a slightly shittier Tombstalker in that it's more expensive and smaller. But if you really get your graveyard full, you're playing Dark Blasts or Life from the Loam or something, he has the potential to also be removal. So... He's interesting. He's an interesting guy.
I think if they really wanted to make him playable, especially in Legacy, just have an exile X cards, no tap.
Yeah, that would probably merit inclusion in a deck if you could use it right away. So anyway, that's all. There's another spoil card. Maybe this is very, very, very much on the fringes. I don't even think. Maybe modern. Anyway, it's a rug colored enchantment, and it's also a rare. And it says creatures you control have haste, so it's Fires of Yavimaya. And then it basically says whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you can draw a card. Probably not going to make the cut anywhere. Certainly in Legacy, maybe in Modern it has a place. I don't know, but just giving we've already had a bunch of cards that say all your guys have haste, and they haven't been good enough for constructed, discounting standard or whatever. So we had Hammer of Perfos, nobody played that, and so anyway.
Yeah, this card's definitely not good enough. Rug Delver's never going to play this, and that's the only real Rug deck in Legacy. And if you are a Rug mid-range deck, the only creature you'd be playing with power 4 or greater is going to be Tarmogoyf.
Yep. So this thing is pretty much a box of shit. But it's interesting. We know now at least what some of the mechanics are. We know we've got fetches. So I don't not a ton of talk, not a ton of stuff to talk about for now for cons. But maybe in the next couple weeks we'll get some more spoilers. It's interesting though because this card pool cons will impact Eternal Weekend and it will impact the subsequent GP. So this is a set to keep an eye on. You know, we've had sort of a stale legacy format now for a couple of years with some clear best choices pretty much across the board with these big pillars of the format, Terminus crushing aggro and Delver sort of being the best creature and being in blue, and then the other side of maybe the resurgence of Elves and them having just this absurd finisher that they didn't have access to before. You know, maybe there'll be something in the set that'll shake up those three corners. I guess there's also and then show and tell, of course. Sorry. So I don't know if anything in here will shake that up. It'd be great if it did, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So.
Yeah, I'm interested to see I like the multicolored shardness of the set. I'm really interested to see what the non-blue shards get. So, like, Crackling Doom, I think, is a step in the right direction. Like, those are the kind of cards I want to see.
Anyway, one other thing is the charms are now bulleted, which irritates me beyond words.
Yes, I noticed that.
So, I guess the average intelligence of a Magic player continues to plunge, and thus, choose one now must be bulleted. Whatever.
I guess semicolons are, like, too far. Like,
I don't know anymore. But anyway.
Maybe they should actually have, like, an intro to English, like, grammar that comes in the starter box. So that, don't get me wrong. I understand that, like, if you're not a native English speaker, fine. But they also print cards in basically every other language for each group that's going to be playing Magic. Like, that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's kind of sad when it's like, we need to bullet our points here. That's,
Yeah, it's pretty awful. But anyway, chalk that up to them, also canning some of the mechanics and whatnot. I think it falls in line with what they've been doing. So that's it for cons. And the other thing now is the block changes, which really doesn't impact Eternal at all, but there's going to be no more core sets, and they're just going to have two set blocks per year. I think, honestly, we can expect most of the Eternal playables probably to come out of their bi-yearly Commander duel sets and things, so I think that's going to be the primary venue for them to push the envelope on power level,
But I just find it weird. I don't like that system because the accessibility of the cards is so small compared to, like, big core sets and releases, and I just don't like the stranglehold that those box sets have on the format and the growth and accessibility of cards.
Well, maybe they've learned the lesson from the True Name debacle, and they'll figure out a way to make that work a little better, but I don't generally care because I just mass buy everything, but yeah, I see your point. The whole True Name thing, timing of it was crappy. I hope they don't ever make a Dual Commander 2015 set legal 20 hours before a major tournament. That was miserable. Trying to find it.
Yes, it was.
So I guess that's news of the week. Want to jump into GenCon? Yeah, GenCon was, so just as a recap, for those that don't follow it, GenCon is 4 days. It's August 14th through the 17th. It was the former home of Vintage Champs and Legacy Champs. It no longer is. But, it still had, I believe to date, the largest sanctioned vintage in the U.S. to date this year. Sanctioned vintage.
How many people?
Check Eternal Central. I want to say it was just under 70 on the Friday.
Fuck me, that's sad.
Well, it's all relative. A 70-person sanctioned vintage tournament in the North America, you're not going to have many, I don't believe.
Oh, for sure, but it's kind of sad to see that the format, it's being so excited with this, Vintage Masters, and, people are actually really getting excited about the format, and it's like, and we had a 70-person event. It feels so lackluster.
It does, but keep in mind, one of the reasons I believe they moved Champs from GenCon is the cost associated with getting to GenCon and getting a seat at that Friday tournament means you're committed to going to GenCon, which is an insane hotel registration system, buying a 4-day badge, coming to Indy. It wasn't like you could just drive in from Chicago to play this Friday event. You physically can't walk into the hall unless you get a badge. So, which, I think was some of the reason they moved it out of GenCon was it was preventing people from coming. If all they wanted to do was play Champs, you had to commit to this whole 4-day thing. So, while I enjoy it, there's some people out there who probably aren't interested in it. So, But yeah, 62 people. But anyway, like I said, it's still the biggest sanctioned vintage tournament that we've had in the U.S. this year, I think. I have to look at TC Decks. But anyway, interesting enough, the Friday tournament, the prizes were actual hot fucking garbage. Like there were like packs of M15 for making the top 4 of a, what was, I guess, ended up being a 7-round tournament. You know, that was a $26 entry fee. So fuck you to Pastimes for that.
You know what I like when I play Eternal formats? Packs of M15, because I don't burn those for warmth afterwards.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about what we did with the packs afterwards. But anyway, I ended up playing Forgemaster shops, Metalworker shops to be more specific. Not for any particular reason. I know I wanted to play workshops at least once over the weekend because I don't get a chance to play sanctioned vintage much, obviously, like most Americans, and I had gotten my shop signed, and they looked really sweet, and I wanted to play them. So I ended up going with the Metalworker build, which is, in a vacuum, is the most explosive version of shops, probably. Maybe you could argue the Affinity version, but so anyway, the list is on EternalCentral.com, but it's basically Tangle Wireless shops, and you've got Lightning Greaves in the place of that, and
oh wow, so you can go like Metalworker, Lightning Greaves, hook it up,
poop on you.
Goodbye. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's super explosive. The downside, of course, is that it leans heavily on, on the Metalworker. It's worse, way worse in the long game than the versions that have like Tangle Wires, Metamorphs, so on and so forth. So super explosive shops, and I have 4 Cavern of Souls main, which I think once you make the choice to go Metalworker, you are implicit. Well, first of all, I've seen people who play less than 4 Metalworkers, and I don't understand that at all because Metalworker's value is so clearly in the beginning of the game.
The reason why you're playing that deck is because of the you're playing the Metalworker version because of Metalworker. So why would you run 3? I don't.
Because you're a clown. I don't know either. But anyway, I think once you commit to playing 4 Metalworkers, you should commit to playing Cavern of Souls because there's a lot of keepable hands in Vintage that Cavern of Souls just ruins. The blue deck that keeps a hand with force but keeps no removal. You just ruin them if you've got Cavern on Construct. So, and my mana base...
Construct, is Loathsome Golem also a construct?
No, but it crosses across a few important creatures in the deck. Kuldotha Forgemaster is also a construct. Metalworker is a construct. Triskelion is a construct. And then the other one... Then there's also some other shared creature types. So Lodestone Golem is a golem. Sundering Titan is a golem. The only outliers are like Wormcoil Engine and Steel Hellkite, but they're so fucking awesome that it doesn't matter. They could be creature type oof, and they'd still be amazing. So, and when you've got bombs like Wormcoil, Forgemaster, Sundering Titan, the Greaves becomes like having a Greaves on the battlefield becomes insane. I mean, there were some turns where I chained Forgemaster my Wormcoil, get 2 Worm tokens into Sundering Titan, Armageddon your world. Then attach the Greaves to the Sundering Titan and
swing for 7.
Fucking 10U, 7U. So I think it's the left side of the workshop spectrum. Super explosive. It's I'm still running Chalice of the Void, but in a vacuum, you would think leaving out Tangle Wire would be a sin. But in this case, it can work. You've got to get these explosive hands, and you're just faster. You can actually sometimes outrace Oath because you're so fast. Game 1, you can just kind of blow them out. So anyway, and then my board was just hedged against Dredge, which, anytime you play Sanctioned Vintage, I think you have to think about the impact of Dredge. In proxy environments, there's less incentive to play Dredge because it's miserable, and if you can just make up cards on basic planes, you really have to be just a awful human being to play Dredge. So it was sanctioned, so I hedged with, the full 4 cages, ratchet bombs. Against Oath, I had Witchbane Orbs, 4 cages, 2 duplicates, and in most cases I brought Ratchet Bomb in against Oath also to be able to kill the Oath. And then my Shop Mirror sideboard wasn't great because I had 3 Crucibles, duplicates usually decent, and then I put a Batterskull in. I like Batterskull in Shop Mirrors. And it's also good against the Abrupt Decay decks like Bugfish because sometimes they don't have a long-term solution to it. You can just bounce it and put it back down. So, and anyway, on Eternal Central, he's got a pretty good breakdown of the environment, and he's got some pictures and so on and so forth. I ended up the number 2 seed, I believe, and yeah, he's got a whole metagame report there. So it was a nice variety. I mean, you can see Vintage has got a real breadth of archetypes. I mean, on my team that showed up, one of us played Oathstorm, I played Shops, and our third member played like 3-color junk Hate Bears, but powered. And we all did pretty well. Myself and my other teammate both made top 8. And then I lost in the top 4 to Bugfish, which is a bad matchup for Shops. And sometimes you just can't beat them especially when you're on the draw against them. It's a tough matchup. They have all the removal. I mean, after sideboarding, there are like 10 cards in their deck that say destroy an artifact, you know. So I don't expect to win that matchup a whole lot, especially on the draw. They can keep up with your land destruction with Dark Confidant. They've got Abrupt Decay, which can handle your metal workers. They've got a bunch of 1-mana counter spells that handle your stuff, from Spell Pierce to Steel Sabotage, Snapcasters to flash it all back. And honestly, probably the biggest problem with that deck is being on the draw against like just land Deathrite Shaman can be such a huge play against Shops. And so anyway, now they've even like my last match I lost on Friday in the top 4. I lost to, I mean, he landed like Energy Flux against me, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. Get fucked. I mean, that card is insane. So
Summer Energy Flux, though?
No. I will talk a little bit about some of the pimp. One of the nice things about GenCon is that the people who are playing Vintage there are generally pretty dedicated. So there were all kinds of pimp decks, from like all summer land bases to some
Summer Duels, too?
I didn't see any summer duels, but many beta duels, Black Border Power. I saw a bunch of weird miscuts. I shot you that picture of that Hercules that was miscut.
Yep.
With it was a Hercules that was miscut with some Mark Poole card. Might have been Fastbond. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So and Nene Thomas and Mark Poole are both at GenCon. So he got a double signed miscut Hercules Fastbond, which is pretty nuts. And there were a couple more people with the revised dual miscuts, and I'm assuming those were probably hand cut. I played against a Bomberman opponent who had, I think, 3 perfectly miscut on the corner side revised Tundras. So, not sure who's making those, but somebody is probably destroying revised sheets and making those dual lands, I would assume, since they were just too savagely miscut to have been done on the factory line. Anyway. So that was Friday, so I did pretty well. Oh, and for my trouble and 9 hours of labor and losing in the top 4, between myself and my teammate who lost, I beat my teammate in the top 8, and then I lost in the top 4. And for our trouble combined, we got 25 packs of M15. So
not even a box. Not even a box.
Super excited about that. So we were going to walk and get steaks after we finished the tournament because we were hungry, and so I was just going to open them up and rip them up and watch the casuals like try to reassemble the rares on the ground as we were walking out to the Weber Grill. But a man offered us $1 a pack, and first I opened one pack while he was watching, and I was saying, who in the world would ever want these cards? They're garbage. And I pulled Garruk Apex Predator, and somebody from behind us kind of shouted, "Oh, that card's worth money. That's the best card you can pull." So I promptly ripped it in half in front of him and threw it on the ground. And then he was almost brought to tears by this, and he offered to buy the rest of the packs, and we settled on $25 for 24 packs. So that bought us, 3 or 4 beers at the steakhouse, and the rest of our evening we enjoyed meat and booze, and so it was a good day. Saturday, another thing was the organizers' pastimes. I know it was only 68 people or whatever, but it was pretty much the marquee Magic event that was happening there. So you get a lot of railbirding when you get sanctioned Vintage.
How was security with that railbirding?
Because it's not as big of an event, they didn't have any dedicated security, but they put it sort of on an end, and, for what it's worth, less coverage, less hype, brought out less thieves. Nobody got anything stolen from what I understand. I mean, everyone's really, really, really vigilant now, you know?
Yeah.
So, but, thankfully nothing got stolen off the tables. During this tournament, they were really happy with the turnout. They were also sort of embarrassed at the prize support, I think. So, they ended up announcing an ad hoc Saturday tournament. And they sort of apologized and offered better prizes for the Saturday tournament. Better being like uncut sheets of foil Modern Masters. Which, whatever, sheets are sheets. Some people seem to like them. Some people, like me, don't really care and just want to convert them into beta cards. But, anyway, I guess the miscut guys can go at those too and make all kinds of crazy miscuts.
Whoa, miscut foiled or confidant.
Yeah, so again, Jason has coverage of that up on eternalcentral.com. You can see the picture of me holding my sheet along with the guy who crushed me in the finals. I lost a bug again. And this time, though, I didn't play shops. I played Dega in Vintage.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, so I was considering maybe playing shops again or blue-white, but I decided to try something different, and so I kind of took my legacy stuff, basically, and added Moxes and a Black Lotus and a different sideboard. So the deck looked pretty sick. It was all baited out, all beta power, beta duels, and the list is on Eternal Central, but it's basically just a hate bear deck, and
with Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, and
yeah, sure. I had Vamp, and I did have Vamp and Demonic. I had a main deck Wear Tear, 4 Thoughtseize. I was going for max disruption, so my curve was like Thoughtseize into one of the following hate bears. I ran the full 4 Spirit of the Labyrinth after seeing there was a lot of storm on Friday. So I ran the full 4 Spirit of the Labyrinth, 4 Tide Hollow Scullers, Revokers, 2 Mind Sensors, and a Gentleman's Aegis of the Gods to tutor for, because there was also a lot of Oath Storm in addition to just plain old Oath. So I didn't run Thalia. I didn't even have my Thalias on me. So I ran Stoneforge Mystic, which I thought, well, it is actually the best.
Seems quite good.
Yeah, it's the best creature against shops, pretty much, in a vacuum. Dark Confidant's really good too, but against shops, your ideal turn with Dega Dudesweats is Mox Land, Stoneforge Mystic for Batterskull. So it went pretty well. I ended up getting the finals of that tournament. I beat Storm, I beat Bomberman, I beat Storm twice, once in the Swiss and then once in the top 4. I crushed shops, mostly on the back of Batterskull. It's a super, disruptive deck. Tide Hollow Sculler was surprisingly annoying. One thing you'll find in Vintage is people can keep really, really fragile hands that are, two discard effects away from just being in top deck mode. So he was actually pretty good. Being an artifact isn't good necessarily, unless maybe you're staring down a Lodestone Golem. But I think in an ideal world, I probably wouldn't necessarily play the Scullers. I might move the Revokers up to like 4, and probably play some number of Thalia since I'm playing the full 4 Wastelands. So, but it was a pretty cool deck, just as a change of pace. The other card that really shocked me was Wear Tear. Wear Tear is a sick card in Vintage, and it was, as you can imagine, it was almost always good. So that was my experience there. I don't know that I'll ever sleeve up Dega again in Vintage, but at least I can say I did it, and I didn't lose a game until the final. So anyway.
Well, congrats again. I mean, that was a good run on both days, right?
Yeah, it was a really good run. I never lost in the Swiss, and then I lost in the top 4, and then I lost in the final. So it also doesn't hurt that in general, if you were to make a generalization about Vintage players, some of them are really bad at creature combat, and so just playing a deck with a bunch of oppressive hate bears, sometimes you can actually just gain little incremental advantage by people's inability to block and attack. So that's helpful. I had some really hilarious plays as the days went long. I watched one guy set his top up with Tinker in hand, and he goes to draw with his top, and then he looks at his hand, and he just puts his face down on the table and realizes that he's just actually drawn his Blightsteel.
Oop.
Yeah, you're pretty bad. And then another good one is a guy is dying to his own Mana Crypt, and we're sort of in a war of attrition. Me and this blue-white Bomberman player, who had a very nice deck, I might add. Summer Basics, Miscut Tundras. He plays his trump card out of the sideboard, which is Magus of the Moat, who is a wizard.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got Cavern on Wizard. So anyway, he lands this thing, but he's dying to his own Mana Crypt, and he has burned all kinds of removal on my creatures, and he burned his final disenchant on my Stony Silence, which I think in retrospect was sort of an error because he didn't really have an active artifact that mattered that much. I know his end game is to get Mages of the Future and top, or to get the Auriak Salvagers combo online, but he ended up dying to his own Mana Crypt, or he was about to die to his own Mana Crypt, and in haste, he targeted his own Mages to the Moat with Swords to Plowshares, which I happily allowed to resolve. And only then did he remember that this is how unfamiliar I think Vintage players are with basic Legacy cards. He thought Swords to Plowshares, I think, was going to gain him 3 life from the Magus' ass, but he forgot that it was in fact a 0-3, so that was rather embarrassing. And I won that match because my opponent doesn't know how Swords to Plowshares works, and he died to his own Mana Crypt. But that's life in Vintage. But I had fun, and it definitely got me some practice in for Eternal Weekend, which is sort of the lead up for all this. And I still haven't sort of decided what I want to play, but at least got me some practice. I don't anticipate anything from Khans of Tarkir, at least positively impacting workshops. I don't expect some killer artifact. So anyway.
So now Julian's here. So we've just gone through the vintage at GenCon kind of bullet in our in our list. So I actually wanted to talk about Legacy Dega again because I've been tearing it up with that deck. And
Dega?
I think, you know what, Sean, I actually really like the list.
What's Dega?
Black, white, red.
Black, white. Oh my god, that's the ugliest mana.
Oros or whatever it's called.
Black,
Orzhov
white,
and
red.
Boros together.
Dark Boros. Yeah. Hey, Julian, just so you know, we as a podcast and crew, we will not ever say the Khans' names. We will never refer
That's
to
very
them.
good.
They will be Bug, Rug, Dega, etc. Junk. So
Okay.
those are banned words.
That works very well. Yeah, I totally approve.
So this Dega deck, I basically took Sean's list from Vintage and ported it back to Legacy, and it's pretty fucking sweet.
Well, that was a port from Legacy. I played.
Well, I mean, but I didn't know your original list, right? I didn't know.
I posted it in the Pimp thread. I mean, I know I don't contribute in the established deck thread, but you can find my deck lists through my Pimp postings.
Okay, well, anyway, so I mean, I'm running 4 swords, 3 bolt, 4 Stoneforge, 4 Dark Confidant, Grim Lavamancers, Deathrite Shaman, Lingering Soul. The deck is really good. Yesterday, I kept a hand on. I took a picture of the hand that I kept, and I fucking destroyed. Okay, so this is the hand. Okay, Dark Confidant, Scrubland, Hymn to Torok, Badlands, Bolt, Plains, Lingering Souls. So this is how this turned out. Turn 1, Badlands, pass. Elves player goes turn 1, Green Zenith on 0 for Dryad Arbor, bolt it. Untap, Plains, sorry, not Plains, Scrubland, Hymn to Torok. Hit Natural Order and Green Zenith number 2, or was it double land? It was something crazy. It was good. Anyway, basically, he plays a land, doesn't do anything, pass. Turn 3, I rip another bolt, so I go bolt, Plains, Dark Confidant, pass. It was pretty nutty.
Yeah, I like the color combination. I mean, you've got hand disruption. You could argue. I mean, I understand Abrupt Decay exists, but you definitely have the best 1-mana removal spells. And then you've got, depending on what you're using for your long game, if you got Stoneforge or maybe Lingering Souls or a smattering of Planeswalkers, you've got a little bit of a long game. When I played it, I slanted the deck way more towards white because I wanted to run Mirran Crusader because Bug was all the rage at the store. And usually generally an equipped Mirran Crusader is just a giant studded fisting, yeah. And I also didn't play Deathrite Shaman because I pretty much wanted the deck to be not reliant at all on the graveyard, so I could have sideboard cards like Rest in Peace and not worry. So I ran Mother instead of Deathrite. I mean, Mother presents its own problems. It's in a vacuum, it's probably a worse card than Deathrite Shaman, but if your goal is to equip a man and swing, Mother is pretty solid. But the deck still had 8 turn 1 plays, which I like, in these 3-color sort of dude.
3-color Dirtle decks, right?
Yeah. So, you can either Thoughtseize or Mother Runes. You could argue that you could just run Thoughtseize to protect your Stoneforge target or whatever, or your Stoneforge itself, but against Abrupt Decay decks, Mother can be pretty irritating. And I hedged the fact that all my guys had 1 ass by playing 2 Zealous Persecution main, and in the hopes that it's an automatic counterspell for either their Zealous or their Golgari Charms, game 2. So I like Dega. Dega's got some sick sideboard cards. I mean, you can cut across all kinds of decks. Like, you've got Rest in Peace for graveyard decks, you've got Buku cards for Storm, you have Red Blast for control, you have Engineered Plague for Julian, you have Chains of Mephistopheles was one of the sideboard cards I ran. I actually played Slaughter Games in my sideboard.
Oh, that's actually what I'm playing too. I think it's really good, especially against Miracles, because you don't have Abrupt Decay.
Yep.
So, here's my sideboard for this deck. Let's see. 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Chains, 3 Reb, 2 Wear Tear, 2 Zealous Persecution, 2 Duress, 2 Slaughter Game. Basically, you're cutting through most of the top decks in the format with that, particular list of cards, and it's goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, you're obviously soft to the turn 0 combo decks, but I think there are probably a bunch of decks that could all claim the same thing, and you just sort of deal with the specter of that if you're going to play a deck without any Force or Mindbreak Trap or any other bad cards like that in your sideboard. So, I definitely think the shell is there to be a good deck. I mean, it looks like we might get maybe a handful of good Dega colored cards out of Khans. So even this new instant might be worth a spot. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, it might earn 1 slot at least in my deck, or at least a try, maybe as a 2 of. See what happens.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess that's not the kind of deck that's made for me. I mean, it's probably pretty good, and I know you sound like you know what you're talking about when it comes to the deck. For me, there's one rule in Legacy right now, and that's you either play Acceleration or you play something really broken. And a color combination like black, red, and white has neither. And I mean, if that's not your credo when you come to the format, that's okay. But to me, it's either some kind of Acceleration, be it Ethervile or some Mana Dude or whatever, or do something broken.
So you don't like opening on Thoughtseize?
I hate, if you're not a combo deck, if you play first on Thoughtseize, that's really not a deck I want to be playing.
That's fair.
Because you fall behind tempo-wise.
Well, I mean, the same could probably be essentially, it just speaks to how constrained deck building criteria is now. Like, the fact that Deathrite Shaman could go potentially in a Dega deck that has no concerns to ever have green mana shows you how retarded the card is. So.
Yeah. I mean, we had a conversation at Munich yesterday about the Legacy metagame in general, and I kind of have to agree that Elves might actually be too good in Legacy right now, because the way I see it, there's Elves and there's Miracles, and those 2 decks are really, really strong and kind of restricting the way other people get to play. I mean, Miracles, obviously, via Terminus, is restricting deck building in a really heavy way, and Elves kind of as well, because it's actually just a creature deck, but it's got this huge unfair aspect, and you're not really fighting non-creature spells, even though, yeah, go away. I don't want to see that card. It's Russian? What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's kind of, like, fighting Elves is kind of unnatural, because you're trying to fight the non-creature spells, but then the creatures kill you, and if you fight the creatures, it's like most decks are main deck equipped to fight creatures, they don't really bring in that much more. So, to me, I feel like Miracles and Elves are definitely overpowered, and I couldn't complain if Elves lost something. And so what I was asking myself is, what did really happen that put Elves over the top, like to the point where we sit right now? I don't really feel like it's creative. I think it's Deathrite Shaman, because Deathrite Shaman, if you have Deathrite Shaman and Quirion Ranger, over the course of 2 turns, you can drain for 12 life, and that's insane. I mean, granted, you have to give up a land drop each turn, like you go -1 land on your board, but over 2 turns, you drain for 12. And that's just insane.
It's the confluence of a few things. I mean, contrasting Craterhoof as a finisher with, let's say, some of the older options, like Regal Force, which was not really a finisher in the sense that turn he was going to attack and kill you. He was going to help you either keep chaining or ensure the next turn that you were going to win. And then the other one was Emrakul, which just from a logistics perspective was harder to pull off. It was,
I would even say that Emrakul was kind of win more.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, there were a bunch of times when he was win more. But like Craterhoof to me now, you know, I have lost on an Elves player, an Elf player who didn't even understand how to float mana. That mana didn't float through into combat. So a bad player on his third turn, and I've lost on his fourth turn with Elephant Grass out, and you know, a creature deck that's killing on ground-based combat on their third turn to me that's you know, again it is a little bit oppressive. I mean, why are you wasting your time casting Deathrite Shamans if you aren't just going to win on your third turn? What are you doing with your Lingering Souls deck that's any better than just casting the same Deathrite Shaman and winning on your third turn?
That's like that's the way you usually play the first games, because after sideboarding the Krotov plan is somewhat harder to pull off.
Right.
And
well,
that's why I'm so much about Deathrite Shaman, because it gives you so much more reach and play in the long game.
Yeah, and the other advantage is, it happened. You've played Elves enough to know the old build that used to NO for Progenitus. Having a Craterhoof in your hand on the second turn or third turn is fine with Cradle. The other thing is Legend. Being able to chain Cradles probably picks you up another 3 or 4 percentage points in your wins too, right? Like
even way more.
Way more.
Like especially after sideboarding, chaining Cradles happens so much more often than natural ordering for Craterhoof.
Right.
Like chaining Cradles happens like every fourth game to win the game.
I've lost to Elves with a Cage and a Gaddock and a Linvala out. That's how stupid it is.
And then you just cradle into Krotov, and nice hate cuts, bro. That's what I mean. It's really hard to actually hate Elves.
Yeah.
Well, what you could do is you could ban Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean,
I wouldn't want to, but
yeah, me neither, of course. But
well,
I feel like if something out of Elves and out of Miracles, I mean, Miracles would just kind of vanish as a deck if you hit any of the key cards. But if that happened, I guess I couldn't really complain.
I'd probably look more towards unbanning something first, see how it shakes out, and then we unbanned Mind Twist and we unbanned Black Vice, and it's had 0 penetration. See Land Tax, see a couple of the other recent unbans, right? And I can't think of off the top of my head why Miracles. I can see maybe having a problem with a Vice on the draw in some kind of aggro deck. I mean, Vice is just such a terrible top deck. Elves obviously wouldn't give a shit about Vice. Mind Twist, I think setting up a good game controlling Mind Twist is not going to impact Elves at all, any more than him impacts you right now, which probably isn't.
Yeah, I feel Mind Twist would just like increase variance in the format. It wouldn't really be a good card. I mean, if you want to do a really good Mind Twist, that's like X equals 4, that's 5 mana. And casting a 5 mana sorcery and resolving it, that's like, you can do a lot of shit in Legacy when you get to resolve a 5 mana spell. And I wouldn't really feel like Mind Twist would be so much over the top.
No, I don't think either of them would
even if, I mean, people would start running misdirections and diverts and all that kind of stuff, and it would get really messy for the Mind Twist player, I guess.
Yeah, I've had a Mind Twist misdirected on me. It's miserable. I mean, misdirecting him is miserable enough, but yeah.
But I mean, we've talked about this many times. I mean, when does Mind Twist get better than him?
I think when Mind Twist gets better than him is when control decks play Mind Twist. And like, the classic, keep in mind the history of those 2 cards being on the ban list has absolutely dick and nothing to do with Legacy. Those are just the holdovers from before the list split. So, Black Vice isn't banned in Legacy because there was some Legacy deck that was running rampant and Stasis was killing everyone.
And it was restricted in Vintage at the time when it split, right? So
Correct.
Because of that, it was auto-banned.
Correct.
That was the whole...
Yeah. And so the Mind Twist play in Vintage actually was never really about generating copious amounts of mana and Mind Twisting. It was about the control mirror coming down to who mana drained the other guy's spell and then resolved Mind Twist. But that was like literally 10 years, 15 years ago at this point. And
the thing is, like, when you don't have mana drain to fuel Mind Twist, it is definitely not as good. Simple.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be as good. And if you're, again, to Julian's point, if you're trying to burn your first couple of turns generating mana, or you're putting a Grim Monolith out off your Ancient Tomb, and I mean, all to set up a Mind Twist, you've cast a 5 mana sorcery anyway. You probably deserve to win. It could have been.
Yeah, that's what I mean by increased variance. If you're actually fueling the Mind Twist with additional tools like Grim Monolith and all that kind of stuff, you're also losing cards, and you have to make up for it. And
yep, yeah.
it forces it plays the pox deck play in a way, like you're destroying everything that's on the table and in hands, and then we're playing from the top.
Right.
And it hopes to be the better top deck. I just bias these kind of decks, like not power level wise, but playing against it and playing with it, and I don't know. But it's definitely not overpowered.
And what are the chances that your opponent doesn't have a spell pierce? Like you're like, oh, my opponent, yeah, I'm just gonna like mind twist you for maximal, and then they're just like spell pierce, goodbye.
Yeah, and it doesn't even impact the board. Like if you wanna mind twist for 4, which I guess is the sweet spot, it's probably when you're already behind on board in some way.
Yeah.
Unless you're running a lot of acceleration and maybe Stoneforge and...
No, I just think pinpoint disruption is always going to be better. Like when you want to protect your stone... Let's say... I mean, here's what you want when you're playing a Stoneforge Batterskull deck if you're playing black. You want a Thoughtseize to clear removal or a force, and then you want to play your Stoneforge. Now that you've Thoughtseized them, you have the confidence to be able to go get Batterskull and make sure you're not stuck with a brick in your hand. So Mind Twist doesn't help you further that game. I mean, if some kind of Esper control deck maybe plays a Mind Twist and it's good in control mirrors, but I still think if you're not fueling it off a mana drain, it's just not that good. And if you're playing 4 of them in some kind of Braids stompy deck with Ancient Tombs and Urborgs, you're back to the whole stompy problem anyway, which is that over 9 rounds, you're going to get at least 2 bad hands, 2.5 bad hands, be on the draw some number of times, and you're going to lose those games against Spell Pierce, or just you're going to be on the draw against Rug. They're going to Spell Pierce, Daze, stifle you into oblivion, and it's no worse or better than any of the other stompy decks. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And you know what? If it creates a new archetype where you have a Braid Stompy list, like more power to the format, right? Sorry, Julie.
Now, I was just like, okay, and now let's focus on the card that really needs to get unbanned, which is Earthcraft. Because, I mean, we've got Abrupt Decay in the format, and you have to even pass the turn. I mean, yeah, you make an infinite number of tokens, whatever, then you just die to Rakta's Charm.
Earthcraft is terrible. You know, Earthcraft can be revoked. Earthcraft can be Abrupt Decayed. You have to have basics in play to use it. You need green 1 to actually cast the thing that gives you infinite squirrels that are going to get Engineered Plagued or Golgari Charmed away. Or you can just fucking Golgari Charm the fucking Earthcraft or the fucking Squirrel Nest. I mean, that card is stone awful right now. And Elves, I assume, Julian, I mean, there is zero incentive for you to play that card in Elves at this point. It doesn't accelerate your plan in any way, shape, or form.
I don't want to play Squirrel Nest, and I'm definitely not going to use, I'm not going to pay 2 mana for an Earthcraft when I can have the same effect, for Korean Ranger. Well, it's not the same effect, but almost.
Yeah. And you're not going to fill a deck that mulligans sort of aggressively with crap like Squirrel Nest, which is bound to be a complete fucking brick when you get it a 6-card mulligan. Yeah, Earthcraft could come off. Those 3 are probably the home runs that you could take off, and the argument against Black Vice, and I hate losing to Burn more than anybody on this revolving earth. But the argument against against Black Vice is maybe it would make Burn more oppressive. I could maybe get behind that a little bit. I think Burn has picked up probably the best card in the last couple of months in Eidolon. But it's the worst top deck in the history of Magic. And keep in mind, Black Vice was also banned and restricted back when you drew on the play and the draw. And there was no such thing as partial Paris. That's how old that's how old that banning is. Now if you have an opponent
it's kind of
who
funny
mulligans
because
to 6,
Black Vice really accompanies Eidolon really well. Because with Eidolon, you want to hold your spells.
Yep.
And with Black Vice on the table, you actually want to play your spells. And I think that's actually quite interesting. But, I mean...
It's not fun.
I wouldn't mind seeing
no one's
the
ever
card.
going to make the argument that being under a Black Vice and being mana screwed is fun. But don't tell me it's any more broken than Show and Tell or Natural Order or... it's just not
Especially Natural Order, Julian.
I don't think Natural Order is all that broken. I side it out all the time. I used to keep it in, for most matchups, but these days, unless I'm playing something that's really not gonna do anything about it, I side it out against almost every blue deck because I feel very comfortable just outgrinding them in the long run. I side it out against Miracles, I side it out against Stoneblades, I side it out against, I don't know, almost anything. Because it's such a heavy commitment, and then you get something and they have Council's Judgment, and you're like, okay, I could have just gotten Runs Around Packmaster and grinded you out. But I definitely agree on Show and Tell. I mean, can't really argue against it. And you don't even wanna, I guess the argument for Show and Tell is that you can somewhat easily hate it by having some things to drop off it, even against Griselbrand. But I mean, you don't want to do that because that's a very, very pinpoint sideboard slot that you have to dedicate, and you have to have it in hand, and so you really want to play like 3 or 4 copies of the card you want to put in, and that's just for really just one single matchup, and I don't see that happening, and that's why I've...
Well, we all agree that it's by far and away in a vacuum better than Black Vice. I mean, we could rattle off 7 or 8 cards that are currently not banned that are all better than Black Vice.
Agreed. Yes.
Okay, new flavors of Miracles. I've noticed for quite a while that a lot of the Miracles players I play with in Munich, and there's a lot, and these are all good guys, they keep in Entreat the Angels when they're playing the mirror match, even though like a lot of other people say, okay, in the mirror match you always side out Entreat the Angels. They actually keep it in, and I've seen it countless times where one person has established countertop and chase, and the other one is like, yeah, whatever, Entreat the Angels for 5, what you gonna do? Then he's like, Force of Will, yeah, I've got a Force of Will as well, so... In this kind of situations, neither chase nor countertop really do anything. I mean, granted, chase shouldn't be able to brainstorm like several times because otherwise you have too many disruption spells. But like the way I see it, it's probably a really good card. And like the new approach, I kind of recognized yesterday, and I didn't even believe it. I guess the people who did it were trolling. They are playing 4 main deck and treat the Angels.
What?
Just yeah, and I've seen it in action like time and again, and it's totally busted. Like you play this Miracles deck, that's like every 3rd or 4th turn you just generate 3 Angels, and it actually puts your opponent to the test. Like, can you handle this? Because almost no deck can handle like 3 or 4 Angels end of turn out of nowhere. And even if they can, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna do that again later. And I mean there are decks where you don't need it. I guess against Elves it's not needed because you only need Entreat the Angels like as the card to close out the game before Elves can recover. But against all these mid-range kind of decks, like I don't know, against Chund, against all these Dark Mavericks, and what else was there, like any flavor of mid-range, any flavor of Death, right? I would say, except for Elves maybe. They just randomly generate Angels, and they do it again and again and again, and suddenly you're in the position that you are asking the questions with Miracles, and everything else that's in the deck is just utility. And yeah, it sounds kind of crazy, and I don't know, I guess they have to run for chase and of course for brainstorms to kind of justify that, but I wouldn't believe it unless I had actually seen it like win so many games. People just slamming 4 main deck and treat the Angels, and I saw it in lists before, and I was talking to persons, and they were like, yeah, it's funny, yeah, they messed up my list. And at some point I was like, no, they didn't mess up your list, you're actually playing 4 Entreat the Angels. And they even keep them in after sideboarding in the mirror.
That's incredible.
The last 2 times that I lost to Miracles, I didn't lose to Entreat or Countertop or getting Jaced out. I lost to fucking Karanos. Like,
that is why.
I am unable to kill that man. Like, I just looked at my deck and I realized that man, I could not kill him, like, in any way, shape, or form.
You can Karakas him.
I mean, he's never going to be a dude, and...
Yeah, if he's a creature, yeah.
So, he's an indestructible enchantment. Good fucking luck, you know, with what I happen to be playing those couple of weeks, but that guy is insane in that deck.
He's a tank. Like, he just, deals 3 damage, or he draws an extra card, and it's...
He's the most glorified divination ever, I guess. But people play him, and I haven't really tried it out because in the form Entreat decks, there's really no space for Karanos.
Right.
But like Philip and all the other guys, they are running it and they're having great success with it thus far. But I believe they even sided out in the mirror. I'm not really sure about that, but I think they do.
Oh, we could talk for hours about Philip.
About Philip?
Yeah.
Okay. He just sold his Magic Online collection.
Really?
Yeah, he compared his hatred to Magic Online to something that I really, really can't repeat because it's probably the biggest hate in the history of mankind that has ever existed. And he compared
probably
it
vulgar and racist.
Yeah, let's call it racist, like very racist. And
wow.
He said, like, his hate for Magic Online equals to that.
His hate for ice cream, it's terrible.
Yeah, that ice cream man. And yeah, it's kind of sad because he was ready to start out streaming and all that kind of stuff, and he got streaming, but he messed up with the interface, and so he lost to the interface in a way because he wasn't very familiar with it yet, and it got him frustrated, I guess. And one of the reasons he mentioned was that he can't justify doing anything else. Like, when you sit down at the computer, you play Magic Online. You're not playing Skyrim, you're not playing GTA, whatever. And I actually have to agree that that's one of my problems as well, in a way. Like, I come home from work, and I sit down at the computer, and I know I could play StarCraft, could play Skyrim or whatever, but why should I, when I can also, like, try to improve in Magic by playing Magic Online? So 95% of my gaming time is spent playing Magic Online, and the other is like some Wii U games that I really want to finish at some point. So I can see where he's coming from, but it's kind of sad.
Yeah, that's another podcast, like the fucking Electronic Games Monthly podcast. I work in software all day, so when I want to feel valuable paper Magic cards, I want to touch them and see them on the battlefield.
The tactile sensation is what I actually play. Like, being able to do this. Hold on, let me riffle shuffle these expensive cards.
Oh, I would never do that to my cards. Like, when people mistreat their children, when they abuse their children, there's some office you can call, some authority, and they will take them away. But there's no Magic authority that you can call when people rape their beta islands.
Point being, we're getting back to, I like the tactile sensation of shuffling cards, talking to people, unrolling my mat,
Yeah.
all of that is part of the experience of playing Magic. And it's not just, like, how good was I today. It's, you know what, even if I was total shit, and I really made a lot of mistakes, which, you know what, yesterday that even happened. But I got to sit down, I got to have coffee, I got to talk to people, that was what it was about, is about the social experience. But there is very little social experience when you're just playing Magic Online.
I wouldn't even say that. Like, don't underestimate the community aspect. I was just gonna mention the community aspect of Magic Online is much bigger than you would imagine. Like, I'm playing against all these people that I'm meeting at the GP, and I know their nicknames on Magic Online, so it kind of creates its how would you call it, like a subcosmos of people that know each other, that know the other person is good, and when you face them in a daily event, it's always like, okay, let's see, like, it's not the random person that, like, I don't know, fucks your mom 28 or whatever you want to call him. It's like a real person, and you're playing him, and you know who he is, and you know, like, how he's gonna react to all of this. And I mean, and let's not get into streaming. Like, streaming is one of the biggest social experiences in Magic.
I think streaming adds to it. That's a good point.
Yes.
If you're actively streaming and you have some banter back and forth. But there's a few things in Magic Online we'll never be able to do. Like, I'm in the semifinals of the Vintage event on Saturday, and I'm playing against the same Storm opponent that I played in the Swiss, who I beat with my Dega Vintage deck. And we split the first two games. Game 3, he's back on the play after I crushed him in Game 2. And I open on White Ley Line, which is about all I can hope for on the draw. And he'd been showboating in the prior game that he won, and we had just sort of... He was getting on my nerves anyway, but he was showboating for a while, and he said...
So you kicked him under the table, right? You're just like, wow.
Well, he said, oh, I'm going to get empty, and I'm just going to time walk and kill you. He said, do you want me to play it out? I said, yeah, I want you to play it out, because the only way I can win this game is if you draw extra cards and get a game loss. So he doesn't actually make any errors, goes through all the motions, eventually empties for some large amount, time walks, and kills me. So in Game 3, I open on White Ley Line, he's on the play, and he gets one of the most busted openers you can fucking hope for in Vintage Storm, which is turn 1 Bargain. So I've got pretty much a 0% chance of winning at this point. And so the Bargain, I have a White Ley Line. Maybe I hope that he didn't bring in Chain of Vapor or something, because he hasn't seen the White Ley Line yet. But anyway, he's got the Bargain down, and he goes, I'm going to pay 5 life and draw 5 cards. I said, all right. And he counts the cards out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I just look right over at the judge who was sitting there, because it was the top 4, and I say, Judge, that's drawing extra cards. And it's drawing extra cards. And he was furious. And in Magic,
did he put them into his hand, or were they separate still?
No, he had pulled the card into his hand. And,
wow, what a noob.
And, so he wanted to appeal, and when the judge walked over, he was crying at me about being rules lawyered, and I said, well, there is no rules to lawyer here. You've drawn an extra card. This is competitive REL, like it or not. And, he says, well, it makes no difference. And I said, well, in my hand, I might have Spirit Guide, Croson Grip. And he just kind of sat there dumbfounded. And because he didn't understand, the real problem is you never pass me priority back. And, it's just cost effect. You pay the life, you draw the card. And I have the ability to respond unless you explicitly retain priority. So, and he was salty as a day-old fish, and he lost. And that'll never happen on Magic Online, right?
Yeah, but I guess that's a good thing that something like... I mean, it makes for a somewhat good story, I guess, but overall, not having to worry about rules is also, a big upside in Magic Online with regards to, I guess, avoiding trouble.
Not if you're the more careful,
Experienced player?
meticulous player. Yes.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, people still lose a lot on Magic Online due to not knowing the rules. Like, there was this person, I think you read it on the source today, and he asked, when I cast Spellstutter Sprite, and it's my only fairy in play, and I want to target, like, let's say him to Torage, I can cast Spellstutter Sprite, put the trigger on the stack, and then activate Muta Vault, and this doesn't work on Magic Online. Why doesn't this work? So it turns out the guy didn't know that you have to actually first activate Muta Vault, and then cast your fairy to target a 2-mana spell, and he didn't know that, so he lost. So it's not like your Magic Online is helping you out, it's just helping you out with, like mechanical things, like drawing extra cards doesn't happen.
Yeah, you'll never lose on a mechanical error, right?
Yeah. Unless there's like so many mechanical errors built right into Magic Online where you just lose, but at least you get compensation. But the problem is you still lost your time and your tournament, and like when you lose to a bug, that's annoying.
You just can't beat the look of anguish and
of
frustration
course.
On this person's face. He's come this far and he just thinks he's this fucking storm guru and he doesn't even know how to operate his fucking Yawgmoth bargain. And I'm playing Dega and he's just humiliated the fact that he's about to lose twice to a deck full of
I think that the whole reason why me and others devote so much time to Magic Online, in fact, is paper Magic. Because we really want to do good in paper Magic. We really want to do well in paper Magic. That's why we play so many Magic Online. And in the end, it's all about paper Magic. And not because the experience on Magic Online is somewhat comparable. It's just it's a way of training. Like, training is fine, but you still want to play your real match.
Yeah, we've all watched Rocky IV, I think. We understand how training fits in, you know.
Yeah. And when you sit down and you're playing this huge Russian guy, and he's like, I don't know, pumped up with whatever, some kind of drugs, and you've been training out in the woods and wrestling bears with your Enchantress deck, and then you're
like
yes.
weight training.
We're gonna get you.
I've actually been playing Enchantress recently because I picked up the last of the pieces, all Korean, all pretty much signed by artists who aren't dead. Yeah. And it's been great fun. It's one of my favorite pet decks. I've tried a couple of splashes. I tried a blue splash for Energy Field, a couple of sideboard cards. And I actually just got a Russian Doomwake Giant. So I'm going to play Enchantress with a Miser's Abyss and a Miser's Doomwake Giant. That thing is fierce. When it has Shroud, good luck. If you're just some little man-based deck, you know what that guy does? You don't, Matt. You've never played a fucking Doomwake Giant in your life. Hold on. I have it in front of me. Bow to me faithfully. It's 4 and a black. It's an enchantment creature. It's a 4/6, and it reads Constellation. Whenever it enters the battlefield or another enchantment you control enters the battlefield, creatures target opponent controls get -1/-1 till the end of turn. So,
wow.
Yeah, and obviously in Enchantress you're generating insane amounts of mana. So first of all, with Sterling Grove, I've been also running a one-of Courser Crufix, which has been really good too. He's not spectacular, but when he has Shroud, he's pretty good. And he's sort of like your 5th exploration, in that you can set up Miri's Guile stacks to where you have the land on top of you have a spell on top of your library, you can put the land next, Courser it into the play, and your Miri's Guile becomes, more of an active part of your turn. So he lets you chain a little bit further. So I think this guy's the next logical step. And then once you have Sterling Grove out, obviously all your enchantments have Shroud. So even if you have the Abyss out, this guy doesn't care, and your Courser doesn't care, and of course your Enchantresses have Shroud. They don't care. So I'm going to try to run some kind of Dark Enchantress, and it gives you slightly better sideboard options that let you be a little bit more interactive with combo, which is always the big problem. If you don't get your white ley line, you're generally sunk. So
I think that could be pretty good. Keep us updated. Card looks pretty sweet.
Sorry, I had a 3 o'clock hard stop. So I'll get this saved off and sent to Sam. But I've said my piece, and now Julian can regale you with tales of pooping in a bucket while he streams for 15 hours straight.
Yeah, I recently started streaming again, and I've been really digging it, and it's super. I was just about to say awful, no, awesome. And I got the new stream overlay, and I completely revamped all my Twitch profiles and stuff because I have more time to stream now, and I'm really looking forward to it. So my regular streaming sessions have been 7 hours, sometimes 8 hours, after work, and I know it's too long because I can't get into bed, but recently I had to really, really play a lot of Magic. And some of you guys might know this. There's the MOX, the MOSC, the Magic Online Championship Series. and there's 12 seasons. Each season runs for about a month, and if you win enough tournaments in a single month, you'd qualify for the season season finals. There's going to be 12 season champions, constructed player of the year, limited player of the year, reigning world champion, and reigning Magic Online world champion. The 16 of them are going to compete in the Magic Online World Championship, whatever. It's like a series of qualifier tournaments, but each month there's some kind of PTQ in a way that you have to qualify through it, like through the running mock season. It's super complicated. It took me 2 years to finally understand how that works, and I guess most of you won't understand it from this short description. Anyways, so the Season 9 is Legacy. Each season is a different format, but Season 9 is the only Legacy where the finals are going to be played in Legacy. And because the winner not only qualifies for the Magic Online World Cup, which is probably the most impressive thing to get, the winner also goes to the Pro Tour. So in a way, you could call it the only Legacy PTQ of the entire year. You expect around 200 to 300 people, so I guess it's one of the bigger PTQs, but I really wanted to qualify. And in order to qualify, you have to get 35 qualifier points over a month to qualify for the season finals. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get there. I don't really feel like getting there. Okay, it's not gonna be that important. But then somebody notified me, hey, the season finals is Legacy. You really want to be there, right? And I was like, oh my god, yeah, I still have to grind points. And so I checked, and I had 28 qualifier points. So I was like, okay, the season ends on Wednesday noon. So I actually have to work on Wednesday, so I only have like Tuesday night to get 7 more qualifier points, which is quite a lot, because if you win a Legacy Daily event, you get 3. If you win an 8-man tournament, you get 2. If you go to the finals, you get 1. So considering that like a Legacy Daily event takes about close to 4 hours, and I didn't want to go all that late into the night, I felt like, okay, I really have to do well. So I started streaming at 7 p.m. And I was hoping to get there by like, I don't know, 2 a.m. in the morning, because the next day I had to work at 11 a.m. And yeah, I did kind of well. I 3-1'd the Legacy Daily event, which gave me 1 qualifier point. Then I guess I got another through some 8-mans. Long story short, I had been chasing the last 2 fucking qualifier points for almost 4 hours and couldn't get them. I was streaming until 4 in the morning. Then I felt like, okay, I really can't keep streaming, because it's draining my mind, like playing and streaming, and I really want to get those points. And there were only like 20 or 30 people watching, so I was like, okay guys, I'm gonna call it a day, and I'm just gonna grind these qualified points. And I couldn't get there. I don't know. I was going to the semifinals of every 8-man I played in Modern, but I just kept losing, and it was so awful, because I knew I had to show up for work at fucking 11 a.m. and I still needed those points, and at this point, I had kind of already pulled an all-nighter, and there was no going back. So I kept playing, and fortunately, one of my very good friends from Spain, who invited me to the Arcanist 20k, and if you're from anywhere from Europe, you should definitely go there. And if you don't know about it, like, ask me on Twitter, it's Julian23, and I'm gonna give you all the infos. Anyways, he provided me with a standard deck. He gave me red, white, burn. So at about
5 a.m.
9 in the morning. No, even later. It was like 9 in the morning. I entered my final standard 8-man. Like, it was already the first 8-man, because I tried my luck in Legacy, and Modern Legacy never fired, and Modern I always lost. So at 9 I joined the 8-man, and long story short, I went to the finals, and I really had to win the finals, and the guy actually wanted to split the finals, so it was okay. So I got my last qualifier points I needed, and I hit the 35 spot at about 10 a.m. At this point, I had streamed from 7 p.m. until 10 a.m. the next morning, which is
15
I don't
hours.
even know. Yeah, it's 15 hours. I had been playing Magic Online for 15 hours straight. 9 of which I had been streaming. Yeah, I ordered some pizza. I don't even remember. I think I ordered pizza. I'm pretty sure I ate something, but it was so surreal. Like, I finally got it. I got in the shower. I got dressed. I went to work, because everybody on Facebook was telling me, oh my god, you have to call in sick. You can't do that. Yeah, I'm gonna call in sick because I have been playing video games the entire night. That works. Yeah, that doesn't work. So I showed up for work, and oh my god, it was like
You were a zombie.
the most day at work ever, because I had not cut my fingernails. My eyes were looking like shit. And that very day, I had somebody visit us at the office who was somewhat important, and he wasn't expected because he's like from the other end of Germany, but he randomly shows up at the office, and I have to go in a meeting with him, and I feel so awful because I'm just wearing like almost like this kind of hoodie, and he's got like this, I don't know, 2,000, 5,000 euros suit and whatever. But when I got out of the office and I got home, and I felt like, yes, I made it. Like, I got my qualifier points, and I showed up for work, and the day is gonna be over. It almost felt like the way I felt after I had turned in my master thesis. That's the kind of feeling. Like, you guys, at least some of the listeners who know me might know that there was like a fun story about my master thesis, and I also pulled an all-nighter, and I actually printed it out at a shop past midnight because one of my friends, she worked at the store, and she was kind enough to open the store up again for me to print out my master thesis and rush through the university and hand it. But anyways, we are getting off topic. So yeah, I pulled a 15-hour grinding session on Magic Online to get into what I call the Legacy PTQ, and it is going to fire next Saturday, I believe. So there's like 200 or 300 people playing Legacy. Winner goes to the Pro Tour and represents Legacy at the World Magic Cup. Online Cup, whatever. I still not sure, but winner goes to the PT, and that's what it's all about.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Did you sleep for did you basically get home from work and then sleep until work the next day?
No, I got home from work at about 7 or 8 p.m. and then I played a Legacy 8-man.
Oh, fuck.
And I think I played Summer Legacy, yeah. And then I went to bed at around midnight, and and the next morning, I totally forgot I had to go to work. Like, I got up at 10. I was like, yeah, okay, let's have breakfast, let's take a shower. Okay, what's up on TV? Let's watch some How I Met Your Mother reruns. And then, like, half an hour later, I'm like, oh my god, Julian, you're so stupid. You have to go to work. And I felt so sad because I felt like it was the weekend, and yeah. But I was dreaming about Magic the entire time. I tweeted about it. Like, at work, I sometimes fell asleep for 30 seconds. And the most fucked up dream was I had a dream about John F. Kennedy. And you know, like, his big speech about we will put a man on the moon and return him home safely and whatever. So, in my mind, it was John F. Kennedy announcing that the US want to go to the moon. But instead of announcing, like, the space program, he was announcing kitchen things. Yeah, and it made total sense. Like, he was in front of all these journalists, and he was like, and we are going to cast kitchen things. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And that's a dream I had, because I had been playing so much Modern, and I was playing Angel Pot, and kitchen things is like one of the cards, and yeah.
You realize it's super fucked up, right?
I'm back to a normal schedule now, I guess. I streamed only until 4 a.m. in the No, I didn't stream. I played, but I also recently streamed until 4 a.m. in the morning.
That's crazy.
I love it.
You're still crazy. That's so much time. Like,
that's the Legacy lifestyle. That's when you're dedicated. Like, I don't know. I mean, you probably know the same. You go to a GP, you play for 2 or even 3 days, and then you go home and you want to play some more. Like, when I come home from a GP, the very first thing I want to do is like play in a the next Legacy daily event.
I don't know, usually I want to sleep because usually I have to travel for them, so...
Yeah, sleep. Sometimes you have to sleep, I guess.
Sometimes. So why do Europeans call them merfolks and not merfolk?
I've been asking that myself because I've seen it on TC Decks or whatever, that there are often lists that list merfolks. And in my experience, it's only the Italians and Spaniards, like, do you say Spaniards?
Spaniards, yeah.
Spaniards, yeah, that call them merfolks. And I don't know why, but...
Probably it has to do with, like, some sort of conjugation error, right? Like,
could be.
Because, like, it's you know, sheep, right? You call them sheep. They're not sheeps.
Yeah. It's 1 merfolk, 2 merfolk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
3 merfolk?
I don't know. In Germany, nobody uses the term merfolks. That makes no sense.
Because nobody plays it, so it doesn't matter.
Not a lot, yeah. Like yesterday, I saw LSV play a really interesting format against Tom Martell on Magic Online. And basically, it's, if you're familiar with StarCraft 2 or like Brood War StarCraft in any way, it's like Winners League. And to anybody who doesn't understand what Winners League is, in Magic terms, that means you agree upon a format. In their case, it was Vintage. And then everybody picks a certain number of decks. Like, they picked, I think, 3 decks each. And then you randomly select your first deck, or not randomly, but the other person doesn't know what you're playing. And then you sit down and you play. Winner stays, loser gets to pick a new deck.
Oh, okay.
And until you've defeated all of your opponent's decks. So it's like a metagame inside a metagame, and it's a really interesting format. Unfortunately, LS3 just crushed Tomatel 3-0. He just kept playing Tezzeret, and Tomatel couldn't pick any deck that actually won. So I'm thinking about, and I have like shortly talked to Mark Barra about maybe doing that for Vintage, for Legacy and Magic Online. Like,
but you know what Mark's going to do? Mark's just going to be like Barra Band with some changes, Barra Band number 3 with some changes.
Yeah, then I'm just going to play Elves each time and easily take away the win.
That's
I mean, there must be some kind of gentleman's agreement upon, like, you're actually playing a different archetype or like a different deck. I think that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it's all about
Dega, Junk, and Jun.
Yeah, in the end, it's all about like the viewers should have fun. And if you're like only doing slight alterations, that's not going to help anybody. But I have to talk to Mark about it again, because I really like the idea if you could make it in like some real event. And obviously we would need some people to provide cards, but it hasn't been an issue lately because there's so many friendly guys on Twitch chat. Like somebody actually was willing to lend me an entire Vintage deck so I could stream Vintage. And Mark always borrows Legacy decks. Like this afternoon, we were borrowing 12 Post because I often Skype in. That, by the way, that's another like one of the big cool things about streaming and the community aspect of Magic Online. Like you Skype into another streamer, and the other streamer Skype into you. So there's a lot of crossover, and you recognize people, and it's just awesome. So, anyways, like if you wanna build a deck on Magic Online and you're streaming, there are really a lot of very helpful and friendly guys who will always help you out. So, in the name of me and every other streamer, thank you. Thank you a lot. Really.
Also, if people want to donate to Julian's stream to help out with some tech or...
You really don't have to.
Okay.
I just added it as an option because a friend of mine has actually been bugging me about it, like, add it. So I added it, and I mentioned it in my stream description. I'm really not dependent on the money. It's more like, oh my god, look, somebody donated €5. Now I can almost order a pizza. Like, it would just feel awesome. Like somebody from the other end of the world actually paying for my pizza while I'm streaming. That's so much better than just like randomly getting money and not knowing what to do with it.
Yeah, or you can just help fund like pimping out your Elves deck.
It's almost done. There are 5 Fetchlands left, and I made a deal for 4 of them. Like, I'm gonna buy 4 Wooded Foothills English foil for €280.
That's fine.
So there's only 1 Fetchland, and depending on what kind of sideboard I run, maybe 3 more Thoughtseizes, and that's like more expensive. 3 foil English Thoughtseizes should be about €375.
That much? Wow.
Yeah, 125 each.
That's a lot, sir.
Yeah, I got some stuff to sell that I don't really need.
You gotta work that overtime.
I'm working 2 jobs, but the second job is mostly just because I enjoy it.
Aren't you a citizen?
Feedback is always appreciated. Email us at everydayeternalcast@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/everydayeternalpodcast, or follow us on Twitter at EternalMTG.